Okay, in this lesson I will show how to create figures in LaTeX. So once again we'll start off with our basic document outline in the source, document class, article, begin, and document. Now, the thing about figures and tables in LaTeX is that they're all considered floating objects, and they do, unlike in other programs, for example in Word, when you have to place a figure, it has to be placed in a particular location. LaTeX handles figures and tables in a more dynamic fashion, so it tends to figure out what's the best place to place this figure or this table, and it does so on a document-by-document basis, depending on where the subsections start, where all your other content is. So it figures out the best way to place a figure, and it kind of takes the human guesswork out of it. Now, before we can incorporate figures into LaTeX, we have to include a number of packages. So this will be an introduction to some use of packages for LaTeX. And in fact, there are thousands of packages written for LaTeX. All of them useful, and not all of them you will ever need. So you should always use Google to figure out which ones are most relevant to you, or just use previous examples that have worked for you. So to use figures, you would need a particular package called GraphicX. There used to be an older package called Graphics, but it was outdated, and the new one is called GraphicX. So this allows for including figures or images in LaTeX documents. Alright, so to start off, remember for table was an environment, and figures are also environments in LaTeX. And recall that environments always have a begin and end command. So to include a figure, you would do begin figure. Also, like in table, you would specify locations, and locations in LaTeX are exclamation mark HTBP, and I'll just quickly elaborate on what these are. Exclamation mark, this thing overrides LaTeX preferences. So for example, if you want a figure to be at a particular location in your text, the best way to do it is to incorporate the exclamation. And also H is for include the figure here, T is include the figure at the top of the page, B is of course bottom, and P indicates a special page for floats or floating objects. Typically this is at the very end of the document. I don't use this option a lot, and I always use something like exclamation mark H or just H. In fact, if you leave it blank, I think it takes H as the default. Alright, so now what we've done is we've said include a figure, place it here, wherever the here is inside your document. So for example, you could have some text here, some text here, and LaTeX will try to figure out how to best place the figure between this content and this content. Alright, so next thing, you have to include the actual figure. What I've done here is I have downloaded a couple of JPEGs, and the thing about LaTeX, you can include JPGs, PDFs, and I think PNGs. So in this case, I'm including a JPEG file. It's called lolcat, and notice that my figure is currently saved inside my folder where my figures are. So I don't have to change the directories. I don't have to specify where the figures are. Automatically, LaTeX will assume that it's in this directory where the document is. So to include it, you would do include graphics. And and in square brackets you will specify the dimensions, and in curly brackets you will specify the file name. So our file name is called lolcat, and you don't have to leave the extension, you can just leave it blank, but here you can specify things like width. And the best way to use width is not to do hard coding such as 3 inches or 5 centimeters. This is fine, but the best way to do it is to make it dynamic, so in reference to your text. So let's say I would like to have my figure to be 80% of my text width. This is how you would specify it. You would say make it 0.6 or 0.8 or 80% of my text width. And let's try it out. If I typeset that now, and there we go, that's our document. There's no other information in the document except for the figure, and in fact it shows us page 1. This is the full document, 1 page, and includes the figure. For example, if you would like to enlarge the figure, you could do, this would be the default, the text width. You could even make it bigger. You could say 1.5 the text width, so it'll go outside of the margins. And often it'll say that there is some kind of float that's outside of the margins. So here it says overfull H box, so it thinks it's actually too big for your document. So right there it specifies that it's too wide. So let's change it back and see what kind of warning we get this time. Okay, no more warning of overfull boxes or whatever. Great. So another thing I would like to introduce at this point is how to use captions. So inside the figure there's a thing called, you can use called captioning, and the caption will be the caption figure. So this is a cute kitty, and right away it knows to create a title called figure and gives it a number, because currently this is the only figure and it happens to be figure 1, so it'll number it correctly as figure 1 and give it the caption right after the figure 1. Alright, now another thing that you might want to start doing is to start referencing your figure. So inside the figure environment, which is in here, you should place your label. And the standard to do it is to call, if it's a figure, you would do fig : and you could just call it lol for lolcat. And then let's say you want to add some document. Section figure. I have incorporated a figure into my document. Please see figure, and right away you can reference. Instead of saying figure 1 like you would typically do in Word, you would just say fig : lol. And if we typeset this, it'll provide question marks initially. Remember, we have to typeset it several times to take care of the indices between labeling and referencing. If I typeset it again, it gives you the correct figure number right away. So notice that it is in fact figure 1, and I have incorporated a figure into my document. Please see figure 1. So right away your audience is being referred to figure 1 correctly. If you were to move this figure down in the document, this label would remain intact, so the number would change dynamically. So if it happened to be that this is now figure 10, this number would change automatically in your PDF to 10. Okay, one more thing I wanted to introduce you guys to is subfigures. Let's say you would like to have one figure that has several figures in it. In order to do that, you would have to use a new package called subfig, and actually I'm gonna just include that as a separate one. Use package subfig subfigure environment. Great. Okay, so here's how to handle it. in order to use a figure, so in this case my lolcat as a subfigure, the way to do that is a function called subfloat. Subfloat is part of this package here called subfig. So subfloat will not exist if you do not incorporate this line, use package subfig. So here we go. Subfloat, open curly braces, close curly braces. Perfect. Now let's say you would like to incorporate another subfloat. I'll just copy all of this, paste it, and I have a couple of other lolcats saved. So let's say I have 3 of them. If I typeset this, I should probably change my size because they'll be a little too big. Let's make it 0.4 of the text width. If I typeset that now, look what I get. I get 3 subfigures, all part of a single figure. Now there's also a way to separate them horizontally, and this is a separation command, QA quad. Okay, and I'll do the same command, quad here. It'll probably just keep the figure as is. Yeah, I just brought it a little closer together. Now, another thing we could do here is make it a little prettier. So we'll just make it, all of these figures centered on the page. So to do that, we will incorporate all of our subfigures into a center environment. So here we go. Environment called center. And then you'd have to do end center before the figure ends. Perfect. Let's try it. There we go. Now it's nicely centered and slightly more pleasing to the eye. You could play around with sizes, of course. This figure seems to be a little smaller, so let's make it a little bigger. And I think because we made it a little too big, it got pushed to the second page. So let's make it just 0.5. There we go. It almost looks like perfect size. You could start messing around with the dimensions here, but I'll leave that up to you. Now another cool thing you can do with your figures is rotate them. Angle equals 45. And look what it did. It rotated the figure 45 degrees. And you can do that, of course, to all of your figures or subfigures. Let's say 90. And you can rotate the last one by 180. There we go. So you can have all kinds of fun with the figures in LaTeX. Now let's say you would like to reference the subfigure here. So let's say you don't want to just reference please see figure 1. You want to say please see figure 1A. The way to do that here is to include the label inside the subfloat. Label, and then we will do fig lol1, for example. And over here, instead of fig lol, you just do fig lol1. So right now it's being referencing it, the reference is referring to the label inside subfloat environment. Okay, so let's typeset this document. Question marks, because right now it hasn't figured out the reference and label matches. We typeset it again, and now it knows that figure 1A is being referred to. Now how do we know that it's actually figure 1A? Well, the way to do that is to leave a blank set of square brackets. So the square brackets are where you would put in the caption for the subfloat. So here we go. Let's say this is figure of a cute kitty. If I typeset that, it should produce a figure, a cute kitty. Right, there we go. And now if we typeset it again, this is being referred to correctly as figure 1A.